are live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the live stream. We got a nice 6-gamer on a Tuesday night. Excited to get into the breakdown. We got some big news coming out. I already see some questions in the chat. Sir Dwayne Moody, how you doing tonight? Patrick, how you doing? No Beal. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Kuzma, Dinwiddie. I think they get a bump up, but I got to be honest with you. I don't really know if I'm going to be quite as high on them as the field is. I feel like everyone's going to react to that news and really want to get a ton of exposure to those guys, which is pretty valid. But for the most part, I think their price tags have kind of come up. On DraftKings, Spencer Dinwiddie's a lot cheaper than he is on FanDuel, so we'll talk about that. And yeah, we'll be breaking that down as we go along here, talking about both websites. I think on a site like FanDuel, where I'll be looking to get exposure, it's a little bit different with that price tag. So we will talk about that as we get into this game-by-game breakdown. Hopefully you guys had a good day. We're going to do that classic game-by-game breakdown on DraftKings, talk about the pricing over there, talk about some FanDuel as well. So if you enjoy this content, guys, hit that like button and make sure that if you have any questions, ask them in the chat. I will gladly answer them as we go along this breakdown. So let's talk about it. First game, Oklahoma City taking on Washington. So, yeah, the biggest piece of news so far is that Bradley Beal is indeed out. So, that is a big piece of news here. Heavy usage guy. He is no longer going to be in tonight. So, what does that mean? Big bump up for Kyle Kuzma. Big bump up for Spencer Dinwiddie. So, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of questions about that. Spencer Dinwiddie at 6K on DraftKings is surely looking like really good. I mean, don't get me wrong. This guy's price tag is way too cheap over here. So, I think on DraftKings, it's going to be kind of hard to avoid Spencer Dinwiddie. You take Mr. Bradley Beal out of the equation, he's going to get more on-ball handling responsibilities as well as shot volume. So the usage should be way up, the upside should be way up, and the price tag really is not high enough. So Spencer Dinwiddie is certainly going to be a great play. Kyle Kuzma is going to be a phenomenal play as well. It's just his price tag is up enough to where he could fail. I think everyone's going to want to be getting a ton of exposure to Kyle Kuzma. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be a great play now. But do I see a path to where he fails and all this ownership kind of comes back to bite people? I do. So that would be my approach there. But don't get me wrong. It's going to be a scary fade looking at the line in this game right now. This game comes in with a 6.5-point spread in favor of the Washington Wizards. 108 expected team total for the Washington Wizards. So who's going to be getting the most of those shots? It's certainly going to be a Kyle Kuzma. I do think there are some decent pivots, though. A Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, a Corey Kispert, a Raul Neto is actually a really good play, I think. And I don't really know if people are talking about him. Aaron Holiday got cut out of the rotation last time out. Raul Neto played 26 minutes with Bradley Beal in the game, so now that Bradley Beal is out of the game at only a 3.3 price tag, I do think that he becomes a pretty intriguing value play. I'm not sure if people are really talking about him. If they are, I mean, I think they should be. So Raul Neto is certainly someone that I would be looking to for some value on this slate tonight. And then running it back on the OKC side, there is some pretty good value in a Darius Bazley at only 3.8 over here on DraftKings. Once again, price tag is a little bit different than he is over on FanDuel, so we're talking DraftKings specifically here at 3.8. Really cheap, play in the mid-20s minutes. He could certainly get you there, taking on a Washington Wizards team that we don't really fear defensively all too much. And you take Bradley Beal out of the equation. Not that Bradley Beal is a dominant defender here, but just one less body starting guy on the floor. So Darius Bazley, I think, is a decent value. Lou Dort at 5.2, I think, is a pretty decent value. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl at 3.7 is a pretty decent value. Mike Muscala at 3.2. I mean, there's just a bunch of guys that are getting like 15 minutes on this Oklahoma City side that grade out as decent plays in my projections because they produce at a decently high rate and they're getting a decent amount of minutes, but it's a little bit scary. They're only getting like 15 minutes. The upside's a little bit limited, so that's just a little bit dicey for me. I mean, the top two plays on the OKC side, hands down, are going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey. They're the two that are getting the most solidified minutes, the most usage. They're the ones I'd be getting the most exposure to, and it's not even close. So running it back on the other side, it's really going to be those two. I'm going to be a little bit skeptical with Daniel Gafford now at 6.2 because Montrezl Harrell's back. He's going to be cutting into his usage. Montrezl Harrell does grade out as a pretty great play for me. But once again, I think his minutes are going to be somewhat limited. I have projected to play right around 20 minutes in his first game back since December 26th. 20 minutes, he could certainly get you there with the way he produces at such a high rate. But if everyone's going to be going there, I mean, does it make sense to be pivoting away to maybe some other guys in this price range that could be playing some more minutes? Yes, I do think so, in a major way. I mean, just looking at my sheets, Montrezl Harrell's 4.7. We have Gary Trent Jr., who's 5.3, expected to play mid-30s in minutes. So there's an example. They're not the same position, but they're around the same price tag. We have a Trey Lyles at 4.9 on the Detroit Pistons, who I think is a pretty interesting play. Surprisingly, I think I might be loading up on some Pistons tonight to be contrarian. So if you're tuning into the KJK DFS live stream, I guess that's a little bit of a sort of like wink thing to you. I think that they might go low owned, and they're really short-handed. If there's a bunch of people talking about the Pistons, I'm going to be kind of disappointed because I'm kind of looking forward to playing some Pistons tonight. So we'll talk about that when we get to that game. But Phoenix taking on Toronto. Next game on the slate. Both these teams looking pretty healthy for the most part outside of the Raptors side. Well, there's no Cam Johnson on the Phoenix side, which I do think is actually pretty relevant because that means that the minutes for Jay Crowder, who's a pretty decent value play, could be even more solidified. You could also be looking to some more minutes for Jalen Smith. I'm a little bit less, convinced that his minutes are solidified with some of these bigs being back, but I do think that Jay Crowder gets a pretty decent run here, around 30 minutes, with there being no Cam Johnson. Came back in his first game since being out. Well, this is the health and safety protocols, and played 26 minutes. So he's already got one game under his belt. They had a few days in between here. He's plenty of time for rest. I think Jay Crowder at 3.9 is a pretty great value play here. If Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr. are out, you could be taking a much harder look to a Svi Mikhailiuk on their side. If Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent Jr. do play, they're both priced very reasonably. They're both going to play in the mid-30s. This Toronto Raptors rotation, we know exactly where the minutes are going. They're very, very predictable. They're the one team we don't have to really worry about messing with us for DFS purposes. OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent, all priced very reasonably, all going to play a lot of minutes. And then, of course, you can go to the pay-up options in Siakam and Van Vliet. Both going to have extreme upside in this matchup. It's a 223.5 over-under with a 4.5-point spread in favor of the Phoenix Suns. So this is a game that's actually expected to stay close for the Phoenix Suns, which I'm excited about because we really haven't been able to play these guys in a lot of games, it seems, because we're just worried about blowouts. So Devin Booker, Chris Paul, both really heavy, high-usage guys that have huge ceilings. I think going to be phenomenal plays in this spot with a game that's actually expected to stay close. 8-6 for Devin Booker, 7-7 for Chris Paul, 7-2 for DeAndre Ayton. This big three, going to have a lot of interest in these guys, knowing that they're going to get their full allotment of minutes, most likely. They all produce at a very high rate on a permanent basis. Makes a lot of sense to be getting a lot of exposure to them tonight, especially in comparison to some of the other nights we've talked about. And obviously the big pieces of news are the Gary Trent and the Scotty Barnes on the Toronto side. If one or both of those guys are out, that could make an extreme change in who we're looking to in this game. Detroit taking on Chicago. So surprisingly, I think this is one of the games I'm most excited to talk about. I was kind of having a little bit of a pre-research session before the stream, and one thing I found interesting here is the Detroit Pistons are really short-handed all of a sudden. They now have a very short bench. They had Frank Jackson already ruled out. I guess he's questionable in this game, but now you take Corey Joseph out of the equation, who's now listed as doubtful to play, who was playing 25 minutes a game. Those minutes have to go somewhere. And there's probably not going to be Frank Jackson here. If he returns, I'm not going to be quite as high on this spot. I'm really hoping he's out. But Frank Jackson's out. Corey Joseph's out. No Kelly Olynyk. No Jeremiah Grant. You scroll further along this list. No Bull, not expected to make his debut in this one. And you look at who the Detroit Pistons have available on their team, and it's not a whole lot. They have Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Hamidou Diallo, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Trey Lyles, Saben Lee, Josh Jackson, Luke Garza, and Cassius Stanley. So I think this is actually kind of a sneaky good spot. The spread's really large. It's expected to be a blowout. Cassius Stanley just signed a second 10-day contract, so he's going to be kind of interesting. Like, do they give him more minutes? I just feel like this could be a game where the starters in Cade Cunningham, Hamidou Diallo, Sadiq Bey, those main three guys, Trey Lyles at the bench, Saben Lee, Josh Jackson going to get more minutes now. I think that even if this game's a blowout, if you get some exposure to some of these cheaper guys, Killian Hayes, Saben Lee, Josh Jackson, Cassius Stanley, Luka Garza even, they could get a lot of run in a blowout, and I don't think anyone's going to be owning these guys, and I'm really excited to be playing them, especially over on FanDuel where these guys are priced cheaper. On DraftKings, it's a little bit different. Sadiq Bey, Diallo, and Cade Cunningham have a little bit more appropriate price tags. Over on FanDuel, they're all priced in the mid-6K range. But with that being said, I still think this is a spot. I really think these guys are going to be low-owned. They all produce at pretty high rates. And if they all play mid-30s, upper 30s minutes, being Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Hamidou Diallo, you could be looking at some really big scores from these guys at some really low ownership. So I think it's interesting to be going to these guys tonight. It's a little bit risky, but I think it's actually quite interesting. So I just wanted to point that out. Thunder are going to start Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, Wiggins, and Robinson Earl. That is interesting. So that is the Oklahoma City starting lineup. They're going to go with some small ball, Robinson Earl, Wiggins. That is interesting. So kind of tough to be trusting the Oklahoma City team, but just so you know. But yeah, the Detroit side, I think it could be really, really interesting at some low ownership tonight. That's going to be kind of my stand. I'm going to get them low ownership. Keep in mind, I am playing on FanDuel where the pricing's different. I mean, Zach LaVine's 9-4 over here. He's only 7-5 on FanDuel, which we'll talk about. So, I mean, probably not quite as high as them on DraftKings, but when we get to FanDuel, I do still think that on DraftKings, these Pistons guys are viable because I think they can get there at these price tags tonight with their team being shorthanded, some inflated minutes. I'd be willing to take some risks on these guys, so. Golden State Warriors taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. Draymond Green is out. Dylan Brooks is out. Steven Adams has said his question, but Otto Porter Jr. just got ruled in. Gary Payton just got ruled in. The Golden State Warriors side is absolutely loaded up now. They're fully healthy. They have Klay Thompson back. I'm really not interested in anyone on this team. They're all overpriced in my opinion. So on the Golden State side, really going to be no one. On the Grizzlies side, we really need this Steven Adams news. If he is indeed out, Jaren Jackson Jr. going to get a big bump up, so I would like him a lot more. Decent play regardless, but the Golden State Warriors are very good defensively, the #1 defensive team in the league. Desmond Bane, regardless, I have interest in here at 6'5". There's no Dylan Brooks. That should be a big bump up to him. His price tag has not been adjusted accordingly, so I think Desmond Bane on DraftKings is a pretty great play here. Jordan Poole off the bench is someone, I'm going to continue to say this because I think it's just a matter of time before one of these times he comes off the bench and just absolutely balls out. With Klay Thompson returning, Jordan Poole is the sixth man now, so what does that mean? He's not going to get quite as much minutes as he was getting with the starting rotation, but what it does mean is when he comes in with that second unit, he's going to have all the usage, all the shots, all flowing through him. So if for some reason he gets hot, goes out there, really dropping some buckets, and Steve Kerr decides to keep him out there on the floor for the final rotation in the fourth quarter because he's hot, he could have a really big game at only a 5-2 price tag at very low ownership. So I think Jordan Poole is going to continue to be a phenomenal tournament play day in and day out. It could bust for you, but it could really, really pay off. So I think Jordan Poole is someone that I have to bring up here. And then outside of that, like I said, I'm really not all too interested to be targeting anyone. I do think that Andrew Wiggins, with there being no Draymond Green, is kind of interesting. More rebounding upside. He's just really cheap as well, 6'4" on DraftKings. I think he could surpass that price tag, but Klay Thompson at 6K, it's just a little bit scary with his minutes still being limited. Could he go off in a short span of time and pay off for you in tournaments? Yeah, but do I think you're getting a little too cute? Yeah, so probably a no for me. And then pay-up options, Ja Morant, Stephen Curry. Ja Morant would be my favorite option of those two. He's become a lot cheaper than he was. He was all the way up to 9.7. We've seen his price tag dip all the way down to 8.9. So if the game's going to stay close, which it is expected to, Ja Morant can certainly have a big game. Someone that I would certainly be willing to get exposure to in this one. The Minnesota Timberwolves against the New Orleans Pelicans. This game is going to be one of the fastest up-tempo games on the slate, so exciting stuff. A 226.5 over-under with a 3.5-point spread in favor of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Expected to stay close, expected to be up pace, and some of my favorite plays are going to be in this game. Brandon Ingram, my lock of the night at 8-2. I think this guy really has a huge amount of upside in this spot. Has been a little bit rusty since returning, dealing with that Achilles injury, so, I mean, that's kind of to be expected. He missed some time. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4 games to kind of get back in the swing of things. Hasn't had the biggest game yet. If there's ever a time for him to, I think it would be in a fast up-tempo game against a Timberwolves defense. So I really do like Brandon Ingram in this spot tonight. Josh Hart over here on DraftKings at 6'3" is way too cheap. He's going to get a lot of minutes. Great rebounding wings, so I like him quite a bit in this spot. We've seen Jared Vanderbilt really ramp up his minutes in production, playing around 30 minutes a game, putting up 42 and 59 DraftKings points the last 2 times out. Pelicans defense is really bad, so I like targeting that. Jonas Valanciunas at 8'5", I think is a phenomenal option at the center position tonight. Karl Anthony Towns is a pay-up option. Could be contrarian, some lower ownership at that 10K price tag. He has the ability to go up there and put up 70 DraftKings points tonight, no doubt in my mind. Taking on a Pelicans defense that's really bad in a fast up-tempo game here. Scotty Barnes is out. Gary Trent Jr. is out. So, guys, that news just came in. So, That's fun. That is going to make Svi Mikhailuk look very interesting. That is going to make Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam get a huge bump up in usage. And they are going to be two of the priorities for us on the slate now. Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, those three guys going to get a big bump up. My guess is Precious Achiuwa starts in the lineup alongside Svi Mikhailuk, and he gets a big bump up as well. And then we'll probably see some Khem Birch minutes. So that's interesting. I think those guys, Precious Achiuwa, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, are going to be really high priorities for us now on this slate tonight. And some guys that I would certainly want to be getting a lot of exposure to now. So that just became a thing. And I would be prioritizing these guys in a big way on this slate tonight. So yeah, the Toronto Raptors are now going to be the team with a lot of value. Like I said, the starters, but I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be Achiuwa, Svi Mikhailuk that are getting the biggest bumps up with those guys being out, both of which become pretty big time plays. So I like that a lot. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just kind of doing something right now. Let's see. Who do you like more, Cunningham or Brandon Ingram? Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is my lock of the night. I like Cunningham, but Brandon Ingram, hands down, he's my lock of the night, which means he's my top play on the slate. As of this morning's video, I mean, things change, obviously, with injury news and stuff, unfortunately, but I do the best I can. Ingram's still in a phenomenal spot here. He is by far, a really top priority for me on the slate tonight. Grading out as a great play on both websites. Austin Rivers going to rain threes again in his hometown against his former team. You got a stroke going. I would not rely on that. It's possible. He is a very inconsistent guy. So I do think that Austin Rivers is going to have a lot of upside. But I do think that there's a solid chance Austin Rivers could bust for you. So if you are okay with that risk, I give you the green light. Go ahead and absolutely play him. Khem Birch will start for Scotty Barnes. We just got that news. So Khem Birch is going to become a pretty intriguing play now. They seem to be really happy with him. He's only 3-3. Really cheap over here on DraftKings. As far as his permanent production on the season, let's go ahead and pull up this Toronto Raptors roster to kind of break this down for you guys. Toronto. So, yeah, you take Gary Trent out of the rotation. You take Scotty Barnes out of the rotation. That's a lot of minutes, a lot of usage. OG Anunoby putting up 0.95 DK points per minute becomes a big priority. Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, 1.16, 1.16 become big priorities. Precious Achiuwa, 8.89 DK points per minute at 3.8 becomes a great value play. Svi Mikhailuk at 3.7 becomes a great value play. And Khem Birch at 3.3 becomes a great value play. So those would be the guys that I'm mainly locking in tonight. Chris Boucher is a really good fantasy point producer, but they've been really trying to limit his minutes and he's priced more appropriately. Same for you to Wannabe. So to me, those guys are a little less interesting. They're still viable, but yeah. Not too sure that they're going to be getting enough minutes to be getting too much exposure there in this one. But yeah, last game on the slate, Denver taking on the LA Clippers. Nikola Jokic is going to be a phenomenal pay-up option. Best fantasy point producer in the league. And the Denver Nuggets were dealing with more injuries with Will Barton being ruled out. He's now listed as questionable, so there's a possibility he returns. I had a lot of interest in Monty Morris and Aaron Gordon with him being out, but the fact that he's questionable now when he was already ruled out makes me tend to think he's going to play. I don't think his status would have changed if he wasn't most likely going to play. It would have just remained out. So those guys are going to kind of take a little bit of a hit for me. This game overall has a total of a 213.5 over-under. So that would obviously make Austin Rivers a far less good play as well. So I know Sean mentioned Austin Rivers in the chat. If Will Barton is in here, which like I said, I kind of think my lean is that he's going to be. If a guy was ruled out and then all of a sudden he's questionable, I tend to think they're probably going to be ruled in. So I think I'm going to have a lot less interest in this Denver side of things than I did. Monty Morris still priced very reasonably, but with these guys coming back and according to their usage. LA Clippers side, you can be sprinkling these guys in. Marcus Morris Sr., Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, all three of which taking on a lot more usage, a lot more minutes with these guys being out. Ivica Zubac, Terrence Mann. They're just kind of spreading these minutes around. It's really unpredictable, though, to be honest. So if any of those guys kind of fall in the price range and one roster slot left that you have on your roster, like, go for it. But I don't think they're really going to be top priorities for me in the slate tonight. Especially with that injury news that we just got. There's just going to be a lot of much better plays. So that would be my approach here. So transitioning over to FanDuel for all my FanDuel people. Tap My Life. I know he's a big FanDuel guy, so I got you. Yeah, but we just talked about DraftKings. FanDuel, we will discuss for right now. So with that Toronto Raptors news of there being no Scotty Barnes, no Gary Trent Jr. now, these guys become big priorities for us. So we'll start off with that on the Toronto side. Going to love Pascal Siakam now, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa at only 4.4, Kem Birch at only 4K. I mean, these guys are all going to be great plays now. More usage, more minutes going around for them. The pay-up option for Fred VanVleet becomes a lot more viable. You know, his upside is going to be a lot higher now. So that's the first thing that I would say. These guys just took a big bump up. I still have to update my projections as we're talking along here. But I can pretty much guarantee when I do, these guys are all going to be popping a lot more than they were before this injury news, obviously. So we will be talking about that as I'm updating things here. But, yeah, no Scotty Barnes, no Gary Trent. Both guys playing the mid-30s minutes. That is a very relevant piece of news. So these guys all become great plays. Like I said, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, I think, become two of the top pay-up options on the slate now. At the small forward position, Kyle Kuzma, with there being no Bradley Beal, you could be looking at him as a pay-up option. He is pretty expensive, though. There's some really underpriced guys over here on FanDuel that we'll talk about. Brandon Ingram at 8K, I think, is underpriced. Josh Hart at 6.8. OG Anunoby at 6.7 now. And the Detroit Pistons guys I was talking about, maybe they're not quite as much of a priority for me now that these guys are ruled in, but I think they're really underpriced over here on FanDuel. And I think they could go low-owned, and I think that this could really pay off for you in tournaments. I might be loading up on some Pistons tonight. They're really short-handed, and I don't think they're going to get the amount of ownership that they should with all this Toronto Raptors news. I mean, Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Diallo, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Trey Lyles, Saban Lee, Josh Jackson, Cassius Stanley, Luke Garza. That's all they have. Cade Cunningham, Hamidou Diallo, Sadiq Bey, priced in the mid to upper 7K range on DraftKings. You come over here to FanDuel. I mean, we're talking 6.5 for Sadiq Bey, 6.2 for Hamidou Diallo, 6.5 for Cade Cunningham. And they're going to take on all the usage. So I think it's actually really interesting to be getting some exposure to these Detroit Pistons guys over here on FanDuel. Those Toronto Raptors guys now are obviously a big priority. I really like getting exposure to both sides of the New Orleans Pelicans and Minnesota game. Jonas Valanciunas, Karl-Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards. D'Angelo Russell, another guy whose price tag is just too cheap over here on FanDuel compared to DraftKings. Also, another guy I want to bring up is Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine's price tag has gone all the way down to 7.5 over here on FanDuel compared to be up in the 9K range on DraftKings. So, I mean, that's a big difference over here. If I'm getting exposure to Zach LaVine, it would be on FanDuel where he's just too cheap. I guess you can make an argument where his price tag is even more expensive on DraftKings. His ownership could be even lower and if he has a big game. But, I mean, FanDuel is making it really easy on you to be wanting to get some exposure to Mr. Zach LaVine tonight. So I certainly like him. Desmond Bane at 7.2, a little less price-friendly over here, but I still like him. Josh Giddey at 6.6, another guy who's just too cheap. FanDuel, you know, not pricing him up accordingly. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, also on that Oklahoma City team, priced at 7.8. We've seen his price tag fall in a big way as of late. Hasn't had big games. He's been struggling, but he's going to play in the mid-30s. Traditionally, a really good fantasy point producer on a site like FanDuel where you get 3 points for blocks and steals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an awesome guy to be getting exposure to. He's constantly in the lanes, constantly getting steals, getting blocks. You know, I mean, he's had games where, for instance, he's put up 45, 50, 60 FanDuel points, and if you look at the game logs here, there's a lot of blocks and steals going on there for the most part. You know, three blocks, 1 steal, 1 block, 1 steal, 1 block, 3 steals down here, 2 steal, 1 block here, 2 steal, 1 block here, 2 blocks, 1 steal here. So, I mean, that's 10 points alone in blocks and steals on FanDuel, and that's very relevant. I don't think people look at blocks and steals enough on FanDuel. If you look at my premium content for my premium content members, and you check out the advanced metrics tab that I have, you will be able to see blocks and steals percentage based upon the amount of, you know, the percentage of blocks and steals that team accumulates when that player is on the floor, how much he's accounted for. So that's another great way of figuring out some top plays on FanDuel for my premium content guys. DeAndre Ayton at 7.3 at the center position, pretty decent. Jaren Jackson, if there is no Steven Adams, becomes a much more interesting play. Montrezl Harrell at 4.9 was going to get a lot of ownership before this Toronto Raptors news. I have a feeling now with the Toronto Raptors news, with some of this value opening up with the Precious Achiuwa, Kem Birch, his ownership probably goes way down. People probably pivot to them as they should. And yeah, I mean, I think we did a pretty good job of reviewing FanDuel over there. I'm feeling really confident. There's a lot of really underpriced guys over there, so it should be pretty easy to be fitting that in. Sir Dwayne Moody says, with all this value now, I think it's a stars and scrubs kind of night. Yeah, man, most likely. I would agree with that. Favorite mid, low price center on FanDuel. Probably Precious Achiawa. He's 4-4. And he's going to get a lot more run now. Or Kem Birch. Kem Birch is 4K. He's getting the start now. I mean, that certainly makes a lot of sense to me. He has power forward eligibility as well if you want to pay up for a center. The problem with the center position is, on FanDuel specifically, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity costs at the center position. There's only one guy in the league that leads the league in fantasy point per minutes, and that's Nikola Jokic. And, you know, he's a great play. You have Jonas Valanciunas and Karl-Anthony Towns both in a really high up-tempo game that I think have really big upside. So I tend to think I'm probably going to be wanting to get one of those three in there. I'm going to have to see kind of as my builds develop and all that stuff. But now that we have all this value at the small forward, power forward positions, I tend to think you're going to want to be going with either a Karl-Anthony Towns or Jonas Valanciunas or Nikola Jokic at the center position. They have the most upside by far. You can slide those other guys that we talked about, Kem Birch, Achiawa, over to the power forward position. Pascal Siakam as a pay-up option at the power forward position is going to be a really great play now. So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can go, but overall, I tend to think the center position, I guess you could go low when you're paying up with Pascal Siakam. Fred VanVleet now, we talked about, a great pay-up option. It could make some sense to go cheap at center, so I wouldn't hate it. But, I mean, if Nikola Jokic goes out there and puts up, you know, 70, 80, and you don't have him, you're probably not going to be too happy. Same can be said for Karl-Anthony Towns, Jonas Valanciunas, if they have a huge game at their price tags. All right, guys, looks like we have 17 people in here, only 6 likes. If you're enjoying the stream, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. You'll get notified when I go live. You'll get notified when I upload new videos. And we did reach 1,500 subscribers yesterday, so I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that supported me so far. I do greatly appreciate that, guys. Up to 1,500 now. Hopefully 2,000 soon enough. So for everyone that's enjoyed, supported, commented, liked, asked questions, I do greatly appreciate it. And I will continue to be providing you with NBA content throughout the entire season. We're going to hopefully have some MLB content if the lockout ends. Love me some MLB, so if you are new to MLB and you need help with that, that'll be coming up on the channel, hopefully. But yeah, if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. Let's see, do you like DeRozan over J-Val? No, I like J-Val more than DeRozan for sure there. J-Val's going to have a lot more usage. DeRozan's battling with usage for other guys on that team. Marcus Morris or Anunoby? Anunoby hands down now with that Toronto Raptors news. Should I play Siakam or save salary and go Ayton or Valanciunas on DK? I definitely like Siakam and J-Val the most out of those two. So that would be my answer, one of those two. I think Siakam just really has a huge ceiling now for Toronto. He's only got center eligibility, though, on DraftKings. Yeah, so that does make things a little bit different over here. But, yeah, that's tough. Towns, Siakam, Vucevic, Valanciunas. Well, on the bright side, we have a lot of really good options here. So I would be making sure you really like the rest of your lineup. Precious Achiawa is only 3.8. He's only center eligible. He's a great piece of value. Kem Birch is only center eligible. He's 3.3. Yeah, so honestly, I would just be making sure you're really liking the rest of your lineup and then filling in the center position after. If you think you have some really good cheap options at the small forward guard positions and you want to pay up at center, I think that's more than viable. If you want to use some of these new value plays at the center, I do think that's more than viable. Patrick says, congratulations on the milestone. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. What about Boucher on FanDuel? I don't think that Boucher is going to get the amount of run that he should. The Raptors tend to not really want to run Boucher out there for a lot of minutes. Could he crush? Yeah, I mean, the guy's a really good fantasy point producer, so he could literally play like 25 minutes and put up like close to 50 FanDuel points. It's possible because he's that good on a permanent basis, but the problem is, you know, he's probably not going to get as much of a minutes bump as you would think. It's probably going to mostly go to an Achiawa, a Kem Birch, spreading it out with like a Svi Mikhailuk, and I would bet Chris Boucher is still in his like probably 25-minute range or so. So could he get you there at that price tag? Absolutely. But just don't go thinking that he's going to be playing like 35 minutes now, because likely he's not going to unless there's some serious foul trouble or something that goes on there. Is Iguodala a good cheap play? Absolutely not, because we just got a bunch of Toronto Raptors value. I think that's getting a little bit too cute, and the Golden State Warriors are completely healthy. So, no, I really don't. I mean, I'm assuming you're playing on DraftKings. He's 3.8. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, he's been producing at a high rate. He's been great. 33, 22, 23. I don't hate it, but I mean, the thing is, he's 3.8, right? We have Kem Birch, who's starting, who's 3.3 now. We have Precious Achiuwa, who should get a lot more minutes, who's 3.8. So, like, would I rather play Precious Achiuwa or Andre Iguodala? I'd play Precious Achiuwa, and it's not even close. Could Iguodala get a higher score than him in tournaments? Sure. Is the likelihood high? I think it's very unlikely. So, I mean, that would be my answer there, to be honest with you. I'd be going with Precious Achiuwa at that same price tag. I know they're a different position, but... Daryl says, I think this is a brain teaser. Bay or Ayton? Are you playing on DraftKings or FanDuel? I need to know which site you're playing on. Saddiq Bey is a lot more appealing on FanDuel because it's a lot cheaper. If we're going over here on DraftKings at $7,500 for Saddiq Bey versus DeAndre Ayton at 7.2, I would lean towards going with Ayton there. But I still really like those Detroit Pistons guys as low ownership guys. They could absolutely bust, though. Keep in mind, like, I'm not really, really high on them as plays overall. I kind of am. On FanDuel, though. I'm playing on FanDuel, so it's different. It's just so easy. Like, on FanDuel, they're in the mid-6K range. It's a different ballgame. On DraftKings, I don't really think it's necessary to be going there. I think on DraftKings, it's ultra contrarian. So that would be the plus, I guess, for playing them. But, yeah, I'm not too intrigued. You're playing tiers? Okay, if you're playing tiers, then... yeah, man, that's tough. I would go with DeAndre Ayton as more of a safe play, I guess you could say. And Saddiq Bey as more of an upside play. So whatever you're feeling there. That would be the way I describe it. I think Saddiq Bey could have a huge game. But I think the likelihood of Saddiq Bey busting and DeAndre Ayton kind of having a more, respectable game versus Saddiq Bey busting is kind of higher, if that makes sense. All right, guys. It is 6:04 p.m. Eastern Time. If you have any questions, please do ask me in the chat. Looks like we have some more coming in. If we run out of questions, I'll probably bounce out of here. But B Shizzle, I will answer your question in 1 second, man. I got you. Just one thing I want to mention before I do is if you haven't checked out the premium content, guys, I do offer a premium content package over here on Patreon. I just recently posted a video. It's called How to Win at NBA DFS, where I break down how my tools can help you win. And if you do purchase it for $19.99, you will get access to all those tools. I think it's a great value. I'm going to be putting the link in the chat. And if you haven't checked out the sponsor of the program, Parlay Play, you should, guys. Parlay Play Bankroll Challenge, we've been killing it. When you sign up today using that promo code KJK003, you will receive an instant match deposit up to $50. You'll also get a risk-free $10 to start with. That's what we started this Parlay Play Bankroll Challenge with. And it's free $10, guys. You might as well hop on over there, try to win some money. If you don't, it's free $10, and you can just kind of ride off in the sunset if you want, or you can deposit. So either way, you get the free dollars. You get an instant match deposit up to $50 if you want to be, wagering some more money in your entries. I'd suggest that you take advantage of that offer. If you want to just try to check out the platform, you can get that risk-free $10. And you can do so by using my promo code KJK003 or using my link that I just put in the chat. That will automatically apply that promo code for you. That's the easiest way to do it. Also, all the links for the stuff that I talk about in my streams is down below in the description box. Parlay Play, Patreon content. I have a merch store. You can buy some KJK DFS merch. I don't ever really say that, but it's on the overlay. Sometimes people ask me questions of a bunch of stuff that's all on my overlay and all my videos. I get a little confused by that. Like, do people not look at the overlay? Like, I have the tools, become a patron, all my social media, the Parlay Play, use the promo code. I have the merch link below and all the other links linked below. I think people just don't pay attention to the overlay for some reason, but all of that fun stuff you can check out if you are interested. All right, so back to your questions. Fresh says, top stud besides Jokic. Top stud besides Jokic. Well, let's talk about it. I'm assuming you're playing on DraftKings. Jokic is definitely the top stud. Now, with all the Toronto news, I'd say, honestly, it's going to be either Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam. I would take Pascal Siakam, but he's only center eligible, and there's a lot of really good centers. So for that reason, being that VanVleet has point guard and shooting guard eligibility, I would say my top 2 pay options tonight are going to be Fred VanVleet and Nikola Jokic. AGT says, Dort or Devontae Graham on FanDuel. They're very similar for me, to be honest with you. I would go with Devontae Graham just based upon the fact that that pace of that game is really, really high. Lou Dort kind of gets his usage sucked away from guys like Josh Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But honestly, those are both guys I would be just swapping in and out of my lineups if I'm making multiple. If you're asking me to pick one, I would go with Devontae Graham due to the fact that the Oklahoma City game is a 211 over-under. The New Orleans Pelicans game is a 226.5 over-under. The pace is just going to be a lot higher. They're priced very similarly. They produce at around the same rates. So for that reason, I would be going with Devontae Graham over Lou Dort. Fresh says he's on FanDuel. All right, I got you. Let me answer these, and I got you. Kuzma or J-Val? I would go... That depends on the website once again. I'll go with Kuzma there no matter what, just because there's no Bradley Beal. He's going to get a big bump up in usage. He's going to be kind of the main guy. J-Val is kind of a secondary guy to an Ingram, a Josh Hart. You know, he's dealing with some more usage to share than a Kuzma, so I'll go with Kuzma there. Okay, so top pay-up options on FanDuel besides Nikola Jokic. I think I probably would still go with Fred VanVleet, to be honest. Nikola Jokic 11-4. Siakam's 9-8, though, at the power forward position. Fred VanVleet's 9-7 at the point guard. Yeah, I mean, it depends. I'd go with those 3. So it depends upon your roster construction. If you're going cheap at the power forward position, obviously you're not going to be getting Siakam in there. If you're going cheap at the point guard position, you're not going to be getting Fred VanVleet in there. But I'd be getting 2 of those 3 in your lineups for pay-up options. You could fade Jokic and go with Siakam and VanVleet. You could play Jokic and one of those other 2. Those would be my favorite pay-up options. All right, guys. We got 19 people in here. Only 8 likes. Hit that like button if you're enjoying the stream. Really do greatly appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload, guys. You'll get notified when I upload my new videos, when I go live, all that fun stuff. And if we can get this to 20 likes, would mean a lot to me. Trying to get to 20 likes on all these live streams. And if you have any questions in the chat, please do ask them. I'm going to head out pretty soon to update all my projections, my core plays, all that fun stuff. If you guys do want to join, patreon.com/KJK_DFS. And yeah, so I'm probably going to be headed out of here soon, but I really want to make sure that I answer all the questions you guys have before I do. So if you have any questions you really want answered, please do ask them in the chat. I will make sure that I answer them before I head out. Let's check on the news, make sure nothing else came through. I don't think anything else came through. I have my phone up here. That's kind of my alert center, so to speak, when I'm on these streams. Yeah, Ken Birch is going to start. We already knew that. Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr. out. So yeah, that's all relevant news. I haven't done a projection update, so I'm going to be doing that now as we speak for my Patreon members. So that should be coming up soon. And yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, Steve Mikhailuk just took a big bump up with my newest run. So he's obviously going to be a great value play now. Preston Achiawa took a big bump up. Chris Boucher on FanDuel does grade out as a decent play for me overall. Just, once again, I don't think he's going to get the most amount of minutes, so he's a little bit risky, but he's someone that, if he's not going to get a lot of ownership, I'd be willing to play. If people are going to jump to him and everyone's talking about him, I would just fade him and go somewhere else. But yeah, OG Anunoby took a big bump up, so yeah, kind of to be as expected here with the latest projections. All these Raptors guys really going to be looking like good plays. Not surprised by that. And if you don't, guys, follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS. I tweet out a bunch of updates whenever this injury news comes out, my content. Anytime I'm shouting out a big win. If you guys get a big win, I would love for you to tweet at me with a screenshot. I always love giving a shout out to the people that watch my content when they get a big win, so that's always awesome. All that fun stuff. OG or Baines on DK, I would definitely go with OG now with all this Raptors news. Thoughts on the Suns with Cam Johnson out? I think that Jay Crowder is a great value play. I think Jay Crowder gets a much more solidified minutes in the rotation, but with the Toronto Raptors news, Jay Crowder becomes a little bit less of a priority for me. I think you could be playing Jay Crowder along with the Toronto guys now, but yeah. AJT says, Bledsoe man or Batum on FanDuel? That's tough, man. I'm going to have to go to my projections for that one. Bledsoe, man or Batum? Let's see. Who do I got here? Bledsoe, man or Batum? Eric Bledsoe. Top play for me there. Eric Bledsoe grades out as the best play in my projections for FanDuel out of those three. All right, guys. I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here, update all my premium NBA projections. Wish you guys all the best of luck. If you enjoyed the stream, would greatly appreciate it if you hit that like button before you head out the door. I'm going to give another 60 seconds just in case someone wanted to really ask a question and they didn't quite get a chance. If you're just tuning into the stream, I'm hanging out for 1 more minute. So if you have a question you really want answered, please ask it right now so that I can make sure you get your answer. Otherwise, if you haven't joined the premium content team, I would highly suggest that you do. That's where I'm headed over right now. I'm going to update my projections, my core plays, answer all of my Patreon members' questions in the Discord package, which I should mention you can hop in the Discord package for only $1 now. All month of January. It's typically a $10 value. For the time being, it is on sale. It's only $1. You can ask me questions all the way up until lock. You can ask me questions after lock. All that fun stuff. B Shizzle says, favorite player, 5,000 under, not a Raptor on DK. Okay. 5,000 or under, not a Raptor. So I'm assuming you want someone that's near the 5K range when you ask that question. That's not a Raptor. I would go with... I think I have to go with Monty Morris at 4.7. Starting point guard, getting a decent amount of minutes. Denver team dealing with some injuries. We don't know if Will Barton's in, though. If Will Barton's out, I like him a lot more. So, depending on that news. But Montrezl Harrell and Trey Lyles are other two options you could be going to. So, those are the three I'd give you. Based upon the fact that the Pistons are shorthanded, too, and that we're not dealing with that Barton news, I mean, Trey Lyles, I think, is a great play. So, all right, I'm out of here, guys. Patrick says, good luck, guys. Hit that like button if you haven't checked out the Patreon. Yes, sir, Patrick. I appreciate that. I'm going to be heading over to the Discord chat right now to answer your questions, Patrick. So I'm sure I'll be seeing you there any second now. And I'll be updating the projections and core plays, too. So, all right, guys. I'm out of here. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. If you did, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Thank you for tuning in. You can follow me on all of my social media channels, at KJK_DFS on all channels except for Facebook, because Facebook doesn't allow for underscores. I'm out of here. Best of luck. Self, just tuning in. Man, I'm headed out. We went over all this stuff. So if you have any questions and you hop in the Discord, I can answer. If you're a Patreon member, if you're not a Patreon member, you can become one. But Self, I wish you the best of luck tonight, man. Be loading up on some Toronto Raptors value. We just got it. So be playing some OG Anunoby, some Pascal Siakam, and some Fred VanVleet. Top plays on the slate. Good luck tonight. Wish you guys all the best of luck. I am out of here.